What's up my people, and welcome to another video in Resouce Code. Authentication and authorization are two very important topics we are covering today. Most of the time we want to develop applications where users may create accounts and secure their private identity and secure their private information. On one side, authentication deals with the problem: who am I allowing to enter to my application? Authorization, on the other hand, deals with this problem: how many privileges I am granting to this user. Is this a guest user or is this an admin user? And with Oauth 2, you can separate both concerns very easily in what we know as Authentication Server and Resouce Server. And this allows us to maintain and scale independently both servers. AWS Cognito is a very nice solution for implementing an authentication server using Oauth 2, and Spring Boot with its security dependencies can also be a very nice example for implementing a Resouce server. So stay in this video if you want to see how a Spring Boot application deployed to the cloud and working as a Resouce server may interact with AWS Cognito in order to authorize users accessing to it. Okay my people, so let's start with this video. So in this diagram, as you already have noticed in my previous videos, I'm showing the current architecture of a system I have deployed in AWS. Just a load balancer with a couple of Docker containers running a Spring Boot application and a REST API basically inside of the target group, and everything is orchestrated by an auto-scaling group. You know, every time the demand increases, the auto-scaling group triggers a scaling action to scale out and create more containers and so on. But today we want to focus on this part of the system, which is AWS Cognito. As you know, AWS Cognito, it is an authentication service, which you can see right here in AWS. You can look at it here. You can write Cognito, and it has two main parts of it. One is the user pools, which we are going to see today and cover today. And the other part are the federated identities, which we are not covering today because they are a whole other story to tell. But yes, we already have a user pool created. This one was demo code, but first let's explain how does it work in the diagram. So as you know, Oauth has this protocol to authenticate users, which divides authentication from authorization, as I explained in the introduction. So AWS Cognito is the authentication part of it, of the flow, and you can retrieve your users. I mean, your users, whenever they open your application, they can create accounts, right? And they can then identify themselves. And in order to identify themselves, they use credentials. They put a password and a username. And then Cognito, whenever the password is correct, it sends back a Jwt token, which is a large token, which is signed. This is a keyword. It is already signed, and it can be deciphered by any Jwt decoder like this one, which we are gonna use later in this video. But the important thing is this signature. The signature is only valid from this. The signature, which is going to be tested here whenever the information of the token is going to be read. Here is going to be proof that the signature comes from this issuer, from this AWS Cognito user pool, and no other way. So this is another layer of security that ensures or it put us in the safe zone to say, okay, this Jwt token was produced by my application and by no other, I don't know, middle in the middle. How do you say this kind of attack? Man in the middle. Yes, by no other man in the middle. But yeah, that is basically, and you have many flows to obtain one of these Jwt tokens. One of them is the authorization code flow, which is the safest if you are using web applications or mobile applications, and this is the recommended one. Implicit grant was deprecated, it is still being used. Maybe you can use it too, but it's not more recommended as it is not as safe as the authorization code if you are using clients in the browser, browser clients or mobile clients. And there is also the credentials flows, but there are more flows, but I'm not going to dive deep in one of those code flows. We're gonna focus more on this part of the diagram. So let's head back to the Cognito Console in AWS, which is here, and yes, so we created a user pool, which is basically, I'm gonna put it simple, like it is a database owned by AWS of users, and you can actually have a there is this website which you can use. I'm gonna show it right now. It's like here you have out of the box UI for signing in or creating accounts. Really like easy, available to use out of the box. And the UI, hosted UI is here, but I am not. This always happens in the demos. I never find the URL. I think this is the one. It's like our demo app. Okay, let's try with this one. Yes, here you see the sign in, but I see only the name, but I don't see any content here. But maybe I have to, I really don't remember it. I think it's here. It's like, oh, this is really awkward. I'm pretty sure that there is like a URL where you can easily create, view hosted UI. I was looking for a URL, but it is actually a button. Pff, how silly. Okay, so this is like an out-of-the-box UI for creating accounts or for signing in if you want, granted for Cognito. You can integrate this part of UI in your web applications if you want. But I'm not using this today because we can easily create users directly. I just want to show you the part of the backend of this system. I'm not going to focus on the front end, which I can do in another video, but you can head just to users. You can see I have already created 2 users. Mart and Fauna Soporte, those are 2 emails that are already existing and I own them. For example, let's look at this user. I don't have MFA, but I recommend always using MFA. I didn't use it because for the sake of this video. And it has a custom parameter that is admin, and I put it in true. So you can have custom fields for users to set up, for example, users that are admin or have higher privileges that common users or guest users, who knows. But yeah, you can actually, we can create a user right now. It's like just create user, set an email invitation. You can choose whatever you want, and then you can write any email and then set a password, and that was it. I'm not gonna create it right now, but you can see the process of creating a user is very simple if you want to do it manually, and if you want to do it from your application, as you know, you can use this out of the box UI and put it in your already existing app. And yeah, what happens whenever you have a user? Let's go back to the diagram, and your user want to authenticate against your application. Okay, behind the scenes, what is going to happen? Your user is gonna send the credentials to Cognito. Cognito is gonna use one of those flows, and finally, it's going to throw back a JWT, which is then redirected to the load balancer by each REST API call, HTTP call, because now that our backend is secured against intruders, it always expects that there is a JWT or a bearer token, as you can see. We are gonna see that right away. So that's why I have Postman in this video, because we are gonna see the difference between sending requests without and with authorization headers, with an authorization token. So this is the URL of my application load balancer. I'm gonna show it right now. I have an application load balancer running here. This is the DNS, as you can see. And as you remember, this application is very, very easy. It has like two endpoints, one for retrieving users in a form of a JSON, which is actually this URL customer at the end of the domain. But now I am not using any authorization header. So what happens if I just send a GET request, a plain GET request, and we become a 401 that is unauthorized? And if I see let's check out the response headers, and there's no any information, but yes, it is unauthorized pretty much. So we need a token. Let's get a token. And I got already prepared an AWS client command. You know what is the AWS client? You know that AWS has a client with which, or a client with, I don't know how to say it in English, but with this client, you can send requests or configure many AWS services like S3. You can connect to DynamoDB, you can connect to Cognito, and you can connect to many other stuff, Lambdas, for example. And now we are going to retrieve one of those tokens manually. We are going to imitate what our application in the front end would do with one of those authorization flows, like the authorization code flow. So this is a command that whose name is initiate auth from Cognito API. This identity pool, I think, IDP, I think. So the AWS client can do anything you want with AWS. It's like a substitute. You can look at this. You can look at the client like a substitute for the console. So and sometimes even more powerful, because there are sometimes actions that you cannot do in the console, but you can do it in the client. Okay. Enough about the client. Now, with this initiate auth command, I can use the user password authorization flow, which is a custom flow from Cognito, where I just write the username and the password. This is a dummy password. I'm gonna delete the user after the video is uploaded, so it's not unsure to put it now on a video, because I would never do that with a production password. And now I click enter, and what is going to happen, Cognito, or AWS Cognito, is going to give me back two tokens. One of them is the access token, which is a JWT, but there is also this ID token, which is the one I'm interested in, which is another JWT token, but with the information of the users and the client. It has the privileges of the user, what is it able to do and what is not able to do the user. And there is also a refresh token whenever. Okay, so this is very important also. By default, my token is going to expire in 3,600 seconds. That is like an hour, I think, an hour. But you can you can adjust that time. I'm pretty sure you can. Now let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at this JWT in this website. There is a website to decode Jwt tokens. And let's see what is inside first. The signature was verified. I mean, this is correctly encoded. And now this is the payload of the JWT. There is the email. So in the token, there is the username. So the REST API, the Spring Boot application can know which is the user that is now doing this request. That is very important, because that is part of the identification. You can, it's like a part of the authorization flow also. This guy wants to know who is coming in and what can he do, what can't he do, what cannot he. So one of the things is the email. There is also the audience, which identifies from which issue is this coming, and we can verify if the audience match the one we are expecting. and we are doing that in the backend logic of our Spring Boot application. This is the Spring Boot application we have already seen in the past 2 videos, but now I added the security layer, and in order to do that I added some stuff in the configuration. As you can see here, for example, here we have a Spring Boot application, security, blah, 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 audience. I hard-coded it and write it here, and you can also pass it using environment variables. I hard-coded it for the sake of the video, but in order to be sure that it is not hard-coded in your code and your repository, you can pass it through variables or through configuration, parameters, or whatever. And here's the user URI. Do you know where do I get this URI from? This is a generic URI where I just have to specify here the region of my AWS Cognito service, which is actually running in US East 1. And this parameter here, or this one, comes from the user, Cognito user here. I mean, this one is the user pool ID. This is the user pool ID. So this is very important to set up with your application. So these 2 parameters identify which is the guy actually who signed this token, and so our application can know if the token comes from a verified source. That is very, very important, because anyone could be feeding a JWT token to our application, and we have to separate those who are from a malicious, or how do you say, from a source of doubt or doubtful source. Yes, do you say that? Okay, but you understand the idea. We have to verify which tokens are like trustful and which are not. And yeah, we're gonna see more in deep this code, but later. So now we were looking at the JWT here. There's other information, the email verified, for example, and so on. But there are not many claims in this user. I mean, this could be a generic user. It's not an admin. We are gonna see later how does it look like for an admin user. There's another claim that says it is an admin, and we can use it to restrict even more stuff inside the API. So now we do have our JWT token, so let's copy it. We already saw that applying GET request to our resource API doesn't work because we receive a 401, but what happens if we add this token to the bearer token? So in Postman, I can add an authorization with a bearer token here, and I can write it here. I'm gonna overwrite this one because this one may be expired. And once I paste my ID token, I can send it. And now the request is working, guys. I received a 200, so the API. And look at this. This is the URL of my AWS load balancer, ILB, I wanted to say. So the same one that face, now it's working because I'm feeding it the correct JWT token from the value from the verified source, and the list of users, which we always were expecting. Okay, so that is working, but what happens if we have a restricted route? So routes that have privileges, not any user can access to it. We can describe them in the Spring Boot like this. So first we have a security configuration in Spring Boot, especially for this kind of logins, I mean authentication, because there is this scopes concept of scopes. Have you ever heard about the scopes in the context of Oauth? Here's an example. So do you see here I created a bean that supplies to my application a security web filter chain, but okay, what is going to be allowed to be requested without tokens in my application, and what is going to be requested with token, and what is going to be only allowed for admins? So for example, We want that health checks are allowed for anyone because our health checks must be accessible for our automatic load balancer, application load balancer. Otherwise, it's not gonna register as a healthy instance, and that's gonna cause a lot of problems in the future, right? And also the options, you want to list the options or endpoints like available to, because they are part of the are these part of the HTTPS protocol, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure HTTPS need the options, but I'm not sure. If you know that, you can write it around. You can write that down in the comments in the comment box. Okay, so here is a route that is protected only for admins. So now this user that I'm simulating right now with this token is not an admin. What happens if I query the config route? I write here config send, and take a look at this. This is very interesting because now we see a 403. I'm gonna move this like this. So we see a 403. This is different from an authorized. This is like, and the description of the error is actually in the headers. Insufficient scope error description. The request requires higher privileges than provided by the access token. So we have a problem of privileges here. Our current user has not enough privileges to get this route. And so do you see how amazing is Oauth 2? Because in one simple token we can have a lot of information about the user, and the token is protected because it is encoded and validated, and only the real source of this token can validate this put the signature on the token. So many people could try to clone or to produce a fake JWT token to access to valuable data in our Resouce Server, but they would fail because the signature wouldn't be valid. So we are very well protected. Okay, so now let's try the same but with an admin user, so we can see in action how can we use this route, protected route for admin privileges. And I'm prepared for that because I have already created a user that has an admin. But first, let's see this user in the console. So this is the user we were looking at right now. So it has only two attributes, email and sub. But now if we go to the other user, this Mart user has a custom admin attribute. That is one attribute that I created myself. You can create whichever custom field you want. It's up to you. I created an admin one and I put it as a value true. So this is an admin. And now this information can also be encoded in the JWT. That is amazing. We're gonna see that right now. So now instead of requesting a token to AWS Cognito from this user, I'm gonna use this other user. And I expect to receive another ID token, which is also a JWT. Let's take a quick look on it in this JWT decoder. And as you can see here, the email is now different. It is this new user, but we have now this custom field with admin true. Now this is the field that is going to be read in the backend, and it's going to know that this is an admin with privileges. So let's use this JWT token again. But now I'm gonna replace this old token with no privileges with this one with admin privileges. And let's try again this request. And now we receive a 200, which is amazing. And the body is just, here comes a message from AWS Param Store, blah, blah, blah. So we are accessing exclusive content for admins, and that was as simple. Just because we allowed that in the application code in Spring Boot, this is the lock that says, okay, this route is only available for users which has this admin scope. But in order to terminate this video, I want to explain a little bit more of code, because this was not so straightforward to accomplish, but actually once you know how to do it, it's very, very easy. I had to create a claim adapter. As you can see here, we in Spring Boot have to specify which JWT decoder algorithm should we use in order to parse these tokens and understand what is going on in the information. So how do we tell Spring Boot, hey, whenever you see this custom admin field, that means this is an admin? You can do that right here in the claim adapter. I created a claim adapter here, which is a custom class I created, and it must implement this interface. And now I see, okay, whenever in the claims you see this custom admin, just add to the scope that this is an admin. It was as simple as that, but the solution, I already saw this solution somewhere, I don't remember where, but once you know it, you know how to do the things, right? So that was it, guys. I think that was everything I wanted to cover today. It was about Oauth, Spring Boot. Oh, one important aspect of Spring Boot that I am forgetting to mention, but it is very, very important. Which dependencies were used here, actually? These are the dependencies. Okay, but first I want to clarify that this repository is already uploaded in GitHub, and the repository link, it's going to be in the description. So if you want to see or revise everything by yourself, you are free to do so. So these are the two dependencies that I've used for Oauth 2, Oauth 2 Resouce Server, as we know, Oauth 2 hosted. I'm not really sure what is this about, but I know it's useful. I think it's had to do with the, no, I really don't know. And this is also useful. I think this is also like the starter security. It was also, so I would try uninstalling this one and trying to run the application, but I'm pretty sure, 99% sure it won't work because of some configurations that I had to do here. I think this enable Webflux security is part of the base security dependencies. But yes, right guys, that was it for today. I'm gonna revise one more time the diagram because I'm not sure if I am leaving anything out of the... No, I think that was it for today. So if you enjoyed this content, don't forget to smash the like button. If you are new in this channel, subscribe. I upload content like this once per week, or I try to do that so often. And yeah, basically, so we see in the next video. Nos vemos en la próxima semana.